Folks, I don't know what's going on. The cards in this video are the most insane cards I've ever seen. Multiple 5-star cards coming. This is just absurd. Descent of Dragons is off the charts power level. We got to talk about this.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
Yeah, we got some crazy cards here. Before I jump into the reviews, I do want to remind you guys I'm still doing my 75,000 subscriber giveaway. Giving away 5 separate $100 Blizzard gift cards. If you want to get the details on entering to win that, they're both in the description, and I'll also pin a comment below. It's pretty easy to enter. You just, go follow my Twitter and Discord, subscribe on or YouTube, and follow on Twitch, etc. Just check out my other social media, and you'll earn a bunch of chances to win. So appreciate you checking that out. But in the meantime, let's talk about these absolutely ridiculous new cards. Up first here is Amber Watcher, a new dragon for Paladin. It's a 5-mana 4/6, and the battle cry restores 8 health. And that's to any target of your choosing, not just your hero, which means this is a universally better anti-heal bot, except for the fact that it's not neutral. But in Paladin, this card is bonkers. Anti-heal bot was played a ton, and it still gets played a little bit in wild format, even with all the other crazy powerful cards out there. And Amber Watcher's just better in every single way. Arguably, Mech could be better than Dragon in some cases, but in this meta, you have to imagine Dragon is better. So here's the deal, right? This could finally empower a heal Paladin deck. We've been kind of sitting on some heal Paladin cards for a long time, particularly Rosticon's Rumble had a number. Amber Watcher could help that get off the ground. This certainly makes a lot of sense in any kind of dragon deck because it's a solid body for 5 mana and it has some upside. It can heal big stats on board if you've been buffing all your dragons with like Dragon Rider Talritha. Can help those take some cleaner trades. If you get behind late, it can heal your face, and it's just a big body itself. And then finally, this could just be a card you add into any Paladin deck just because the power level is so high. It doesn't have to be a synergy card. It's just a 1-of in a Zephrys deck. It's a 2-of in a mid-range deck. It's just so good that any Paladin deck, I think, could run it. So believe it or not, I think this is actually a 5-star card. Normally, I don't give those things to defining cards that aren't setting up a brand new archetype. But I think because this has so much playability across so many archetypes that could show up in almost any Paladin except maybe hyper aggro ones, which I know have been very common. It also could be a centerpiece for some of those synergy decks. So all in all, this is a pretty fantastic, stellar, standout card. All right, so next up, let's take a look at Varanasi, a new Hunter Legendary Dragon. He's a 6-mana, 7/6, and his battle cry reads, change the health of all enemy minions to 1. So basically, that's like an equality style effect, which is currently, mind you, a 4-mana card attached to a 6-mana minion that also has 7/6 in stats. So that's a really powerful effect, as we've seen in Paladin. It used to be 2 mana, of course, but even then, that's a powerful effect when attached to a 7/6 body, because those are basically vanilla stats on this unit for a 6-drop. And of course, Hunter has a lot of ways to deal with 1 health stuff. We've seen Hunter's Mark alone get played in Hunter. There are all kinds of rushing 1/1 or charging 1/1s, would say, Unleash the Hounds, for instance, that synergize really nicely here with Varanasi. But frankly, just hitting 1 minion with this for that kind of Hunter's Mark style effect, maybe you have a Desert Spear up to kill something big, that's a great play for 6 mana. If you can set up a board clear combo with Unleash the Hounds where you take out even more, well, that's even more stellar, right? This just scales really well on big boards, and it's fine for just 1 or 2 things as a kind of spot removal tool that still remains really aggressive. So yes, this could slot into something like a Zephrys deck really nicely. Just another good mid-rangey minion in a brand hunter. That's something that's automatically going to line up well. Could also maybe build towards a control hunter that actually has some strong removal tools. Frankly, you could even put this in a fairly aggressive hunter as the top end of your deck, where you're just dropping a big minion and pushing through a taunt or moving through some scary, threatening thing. Varanasi has a lot of options. And that's why I think this is going to be a really fantastic card for Hunter across a variety of archetypes. This one looks quite good. Moving on here to Kronks Dragon Hoof, another absurd card. He's a 6-mana 6/6 neutral legendary. His battle cry draws you Galakrond. So that alone is amazing. It's a tutor for Galakrond on curve on a reasonably good body. That's perfect for a Galakrond deck. Exactly what you're looking like, making it super, super likely that you find your Galakrond on time because you either draw Galakrond or you get Kronks. You're good to go. Or if you're already Galakrond, if you've already played the hero card Galakrond, then you get to unleash a Devastation. And apparently you discover between 4 options for Devastations. You can get an 8/8 Taunt for a big time board load. You can deal 5 damage to all minions for a big time board clear. You can give your minions +2/+2 for a strong follow-up, or you can deal 5 damage to the enemy hero and heal your own hero for 5 for a little bit of a health swing, or potentially even a lethal push. Needless to say, all of those are incredible on their own for 6 mana. When you bundle them with the additional minion of Kronks himself, they're just absurdly good. This card might actually just be way better after Galakrond. It's just so good after Galakrond, and it's absolutely fine pre-Galakrond. So more or less guaranteed to be good. The odds of none of the Galakrond cards hitting some kind of relevant deck are so slim. We're gonna see a Galakrond deck in the meta somewhere. This guy is absolutely going to fit into that deck. There's almost no question there. So yes, this card is basically a lock to get played. It might only be in 1 or 2 decks, but it's going to be impactful and important in those decks. This is an amazing card. Now let's take a look at Hot Air Balloon, a new neutral mech, a 1-mana 1/2, and it reads, at the start of your turn, gain +1 health. And I think this is a really solid little filler mech. We've seen things like 1/3s that don't even have stats. I think Dire Mole have made the cut in competitive decks. Hot Air Balloon is basically a 1/3 a lot of the time. If you play this first, it's going to survive. It's going to become a 1/3, and it's a mech, so it has some immediate magnetic upside for anybody that has a turn 2 follow-up or even a turn 3 follow-up, something like Snip Snap. It could be really amazing to get a mech like this that sticks on board and starts to scale. So it could be a 1/4, a 1/5, etc. I think there are a handful of aggressive mech decks that could utilize this to get off to that early start and just start to overwhelm their opponent thanks to this. Now, of course, if you're playing second, this doesn't usually feel as good because your opponent might, say, coin out something with 2 attack, but if they do just play a 1-drop or pass their turn, this is still going to have that opportunity to survive and start to grow. And because of that, because of the mech synergy, because it's comparable to other 1-mana openers we've seen, and even there are some great 1/2s that have been good for 1 mana as well, I personally think the Hot Air Balloon kind of makes sense and kind of lines up. This looks like a fairly good playable card. And now we have the camouflaged dirigible. This is a 6-mana 6/6 mech, another Hot Air Balloon themed card here. And the battle cry will give your other mechs stealth until your next turn. So a little bit of a follow-up here that potentially gives you, the option to like build a big board of mechs and then stealth them and maybe just kill your opponent, for instance. It might help you get a mech sticky on board for a magnetic style follow-up. So a couple different ways you can utilize this guy to do some sneaky shenanigan-y style stuff in a mech deck, which is certainly interesting, but to be honest, I don't know if it's really what mechs need as a package to do anything different than what they're already doing. If we look at some of the mech decks that are out there that exist, they're usually happy to just go, 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 and a follow-up like this may not be enough, particularly because it doesn't help you against universal removal style things like Brawls or Twisting Nethers. Even really like Flame Strikes would still hit through stealth. So it only really changes against board trades, and mechs are pretty good against board trades in most cases anyway. They often even have death rattles to help them ensure the same sort of stickiness required for magnetic follow-ups. So to me, although this definitely has potential because it does something very unique and special, and there might be some combo that can utilize it, I'm not counting this card out. I don't think it's necessarily a natural fit for what mechs are trying to do, but all around still a very solid card. Good stats, unique style effect, super synergistic because it's a mech itself. So I'm not counting it out. I think this is a good card that could be played, just maybe not quite at the same level as most of the cards in this review. I'd say just solid 3-star sort of card instead of like insane like most of the cards here. So now let's take a look at the Reom Apothecary for Rogue. It's a 4 mana 2/5, and if you combo it, you will draw a Death Rattle minion from your deck and then gain that minion's Death Rattle. So a little bit similar to the legendary Myra Rotspring, but I would argue even better, because with Reom Apothecary, you have a lot of control over which death rattles are going to be offered, whereas with Myra Rotspring, you're just discovering some random death rattles. So here, you can build your deck out in a very specific way. For instance, if you wanted, like, maybe just Wax a Dread, for instance, is like the death rattle you're trying to hit with Reom Apothecary. Maybe that's like one of only, 1 or 2 that you run to make sure you're pulling off some very specific combo. There might be other cool instances of that both now and in the future. Alternatively, you can just dump this into a generalized aggro deck to help you move through your deck, because card draw is amazing. And then you're going to have death rattles that you really like, and they do specific things that you want. Maybe draw cards, maybe more tempo plays. Regardless, you build your deck to support Apothecary, and it rewards you. And it's got better stats than Myra Rotspring, and it's cheaper than Myra Rotspring. The one aspect here is that it does have to be comboed, which sounds a little challenging when I first think about it, but then I remember cards like Elven Minstrel got a lot of play at 4 mana. It was not very difficult to combo in Rogue, and for that same reason, I think Reom Apothecary can do the same thing, and it's a much better on-board play than something like Elven Minstrel, even if it does draw you a little bit less from a card or resource standpoint. That said, this card seems really, really strong. It does so many good things. It's synergistic. It's a tutor card sometimes, a generalized value and resource card that doesn't sacrifice much on board other times. I don't know if it's enough to bring Death Rattle Rogue to the forefront, but I think it's just specific enough in what it does, and it can occasionally be a tutor, that some deck will use this anyway, even if it's not a Death Rattle deck. It's just like, find some awesome value Death Rattle minion in your deck and cheat out that Death Rattle. Think about like a Sylvanas. I know Sylvanas is rotating out again, but like, just imagine having a Sylvanas in your deck and how crazy this card would be. Any kind of minion like that makes Reom Apothecary absolutely fantastic. So this looks like it's just an incredibly strong card too. So now moving on to Warlock, we still have some strong cards. It's the Crazed Netherwing this time. It's a 5 mana 5/5 dragon, and the battle cry reads, if you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage to all other characters. So basically, it's a 5/5 with a Hellfire attached to it. Hellfire, of course, a 4 mana card, kind of meaning you're spending like 1 mana here for the 5/5. Also comparable to a card like Abyssal Enforcer that was a 6 mana 6/6 that had the same effect. Now, this is conditional. You do have to have a dragon in hand for this one to make sense. And that's really the only risk that this card faces of not seeing play, because from a stat and cost standpoint, this is absurdly good. Like, Hellfire is a playable card. Abyssal Enforcer got played in competitive Warlock decks as well. Crazed Netherwing is that perfect spot right in the middle between the two, and it lines up pretty darn well at 5 mana, I have to say. It's going to feel very, very good to play. Probably even better than Hellfire on 4 in some cases, and even better than Enforcer on 6. So all in all, I mean, it's just perfect. The challenge is Warlock going to be able to run enough dragons to make a card like this make sense? It seems like every deck's going to have a lot of great dragons to choose from. There are a ton of new ones. We don't know exactly what Warlock's dragon package looks like in total, but nonetheless, the upside on this card is so high, you have to think a deck might show up just to run this, like some kind of Dragon Zephyrus package could come together, just because this is such a good mid-game swing card and a control card at that. So it could go in a mid-range deck, probably leans a little bit more towards control. You wouldn't expect to see this in any sort of aggressive deck. First off, dragons don't tend to lend themselves towards aggression, and of course the 3 damage dealing to your own minions is not good in a zoo-style play, so you have kind of eclipsed half of what Warlock traditionally does with this card, and that could limit it again. That is a risk. So, the chances of this seeing play are moderate, I would say, but the power level, if it does see play, is incredibly high, which means I think this card has a very good chance to be quite impactful. Moving on to Nether Breath here, also for Warlock. Basically, everything I said about our previous card, you can also say about this one, because it is, again, from a raw power level standpoint, when it goes off and you have a dragon, it's just crazy good. It just, does that dragon deck make sense, and does it come together? So Nether Breath, 2 mana spell, deals 2 damage by default. That's not very exciting for 2 mana. You could do it in a pinch, you'd be fine. But if you're holding a dragon, suddenly you deal 4 damage and you have lifesteal on the spell as well. So it's basically like a better penance, a better shadow bolt, a better drain life, a better drain soul. Like every way you kind of break this thing down, it's either cheaper or does more damage than a ton of comparable and, by the way, playable cards at that. So again, from a power level standpoint, if you have the dragon, there's no question this card meets all your requirements. It's very, very strong. It's just, once again, the chances for it to see play, I think, are moderate, but the impact is insanely high. Now, I will say this is probably even more of a control style card than our previous one because of that lifesteal aspect. This one doesn't offer the same kind of like mid-rangey tempo that our previous card does. So it may be even more limited than the previous one, but still, it's so good that between the two of them in particular, some kind of dragon deck has to make sense for Warlock with this one, right? I think it just gets there. Amber Watcher is a 5-star card. Hot Air Balloon is a 4-star card. Varanasi is a 5-star card. Camouflaged Dirigible is a 3-star card. Kronks Dragon Hoof is a 5-star card. Reom Apothecary is a 4-star card. Crazed Netherwing is a 4-star card. Nether Breath is a 4-star card. And there you go, folks. Those are the reviews. Now, I know some of you will say these cards are so good they deserve 5 stars. I just don't think they have the widespread playability to get to 5 stars. Like, they're not going to be, you know, the star centerpiece of a deck, nor are they going to be so pervasive that they're played everywhere. Amber Watcher, as I said, I do think it has that chance because it can fit into so many different decks. But the Warlock cards, for instance, and the Rogue card, I don't think they quite do that. So they're very, very good 4-star cards, like 4.5 stars, but they still don't really get to that 5-star requirement for me. Remember, my ratings aren't like likelihood to be played, they're actual impact on the meta. So keep that in mind when assessing those. I'm certain that some of you will think these are 5 stars, but just not quite to my system. That said, as always, thanks for your input. I'm sure you'll share lots of thoughts in the comments below, which I encourage. I can't wait to hear what you guys think. And I want to thank you also for watching, and stay tuned for more reviews in the future. Certainly helps if you subscribe to see those next set of reviews. I'm happy to be back home with normal setup. That's always nice as well. And all that said, thanks much for watching, and until next time, game on.
Dragons take flight above the ice and snow.